So I introduced myself as an artist, a designer, and a treasure hunter.
I like it.
Winners never quit, and quitters never win.
Quitters win all the time. Let us show you how on Quit Happens.
Hey everyone, Lynn Marie here. Thank you so much for joining me on the next episode of Quit Happens. Before we get started, just wanted to let you know where you can find out more about all things strategic quitting. You can find me online at quittingbydesign.com, on Facebook and Instagram as Quitting by Design, and on Twitter at LMORSKI. That's L Morski. Today's guest is Peter Bragino from New York City. Peter is, as you heard from him, an artist, a designer, and a treasure hunter, finding the beauty and treasure in each moment. His story is full of fearless quits, intermingled with this nonstop drive to be the artist his intuition told him he was. So, without further ado, thanks for joining us today, Peter.
Thank you. I'm proud and honored to be here.
We were brought together by Lee Constantine from Publishizer, and we both have used Publishizer for our books. And Lee said, "Oh, you've got to hear Peter's story. Peter would be great for your podcast." So again, Peter is one of the people I have not met in person, and I was very excited to hear his story and to be able to share it with you all. So Peter, if you could start by telling us a little bit about what happened when you were a child.
So when I was a kid, I was invited by my dad to go into New York City with him to go check out the subways. He was a track walker for the New York City Transit Authority. So I had never seen the subways before. I'd never really been to the city. So I spent this one day with him, going through all the different terminals, and he had the keys to all the gates, and he took me on the trains. I got to look out the front of the train. It was like really amazing to me as a child to be on those trains and stuff. And it was a moment towards the end of our journey where we saw these murals on these walls coming out of the station they kind of looked like a flip book when you looked out the window of the train. And it was just totally, it was like the culmination of this just amazing day. And I remember my dad at that moment looked down at me and he said, these artists, they come down here and they do this. They don't get paid to come down here and do this. They do it because it's something that's within them. And it was right at that moment, like in an instant, I knew that I was an artist just like them. And I've had that intuition ever since I was 8 years old. And that's basically what's driven all of my decisions throughout my life moving forward.
Do you think what spoke to you was the doing something from passion, or had you been drawing or doodling prior to that time?
Honestly, I know I always kind of like doodled and drew, but nothing like crazy. It wasn't like, I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth. I just know that I remember as soon as he said that, I just had a clear knowing in my soul that I was an artist, and that's what I would do with my life. It was just very clear and rounded, so to speak.
And so from there, what did you do to pursue art? Because we'll get to a point in Peter's story where he does something very different from art. And so I'm wondering, in the gap there, were you working on art?
So I did art just like anybody else did art. I was in all the normal art classes that anybody else in the school was in. I just happened to excel in those classes. I wasn't taking any outside things. I do know that, when my friends and I got together and we trying to figure out what we were going to do for the day, let's just say in the summertime, everyone was like, let's play hockey, let's play baseball, let's do this. And, I'd always put on the table, let's draw, like, why don't we all get together and draw? But I don't think, people didn't really take me up on that much because there wasn't anybody else that I knew that was around me that really was into art like I was. So I didn't really do it that often, honestly, not any more than anybody else, but I always had this idea in my head that I'd be an artist. So I did excel in all my classes. And then when I went to college, 2 years of college, I just took the basic, like any electives that I could take. I took art classes, but that's pretty much all I did. I didn't really have money to go to art school. And that's what brings us to the point that you're speaking about, where I choose a different direction that's not really art related.
Yes, please go into that.
Right. So I wanted to go to the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. That was like my dream out of high school. And of course, the school visual arts was very expensive. I didn't have the money to do that. And I decided on the second time in my life that I ever got a clear intuition. I was at a friend's coming home party from boot camp, from Marine Corps boot camp, and he had come in his dress blues, and he looked perfectly, organized and very respectable and stuff like that. And his mother came into the room. He was telling us stories about boot camp, and his mother came in the room. She was so proud of him, and she said, all you guys should think about going in the Marine Corps as well. And once again, the second time in my life, a clear light bulb lit up over my head and said, "You're going to be a Marine." And I went into the Marine Corps basically because I couldn't pursue my career as an artist going to art school. So I just did what my intuition told me at that moment. And I went to the Marine Corps. I went to a 5-year enlistment, and then I became an air traffic controller in the Marine Corps.
Okay. And then while you were there, did you feel like this being a Marine is in line with who I am? Like, as your intuition said, you're going to be a Marine. Did that pan out to be true?
I loved the Marine Corps. I mean, I was super gung ho about being a Marine. It was just, it was a very clear, intuition that I had that I'd be a Marine, and I became very obsessed with being a Marine and wanting to be in the Marine Corps. By the time I finally got in there, it was everything I could have ever dreamed it was. It was amazing. Of course, I didn't have to go to a war or anything like that. So I basically served an entire peacetime enlistment, which was good. And I was stationed out in California. So, Southern California at a Marine Corps base called Marine Corps Air Station El Toro. So it was a pretty cush enlistment as far as the Marine Corps is concerned,
Yeah. And what led to you deciding when you got out, you had this choice, okay, you're an air traffic controller in the Marines, and that's a career you can go into, but you chose not to. This is where your first quit comes in, correct?
That's correct, yes. For me, it was never a choice, even though towards the end of the Marine Corps career, and I really enjoyed being an air traffic controller. It was a very exciting, interesting, fun job to do. And we were all really good at what we did because we worked at Marine Corps Air Station El Toro, which was one of the largest airfields in the country and also one of the busiest military bases. So we were primed and ready to actually go out into the field and become air traffic controllers with the FAA in the civilian world because we had a lot of good experience doing it. But I always knew that I was going to be an artist. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, or the whole time I was in the Marine Corps, I was actually doing art in the Marine Corps. I started a little business in the barracks, and I was airbrushing T-shirts for people and doing designs and all sorts of good stuff. So I was already fully engaged in my pursuit back towards art again. By the time I got out of the Marine Corps, it was a no decision for me. I actually had a conversation on the phone with the FAA representative. She called me twice just to make sure. She said, "Are you actually turning down your job with the FAA?" And I said, "Yes, I'm turning down my job with the FAA." She just couldn't believe it. Because, like I said, the FAA hadn't hired for 15 years prior to that because of the firing that was done by Reagan in the 80s. He fired all the air traffic controllers and brought in all military guys. So to get a job as in the FAA as an air traffic controller was like gold, So yeah, so I quit the Marine Corps and I quit air traffic control to pursue my career as an artist, and I had no apprehension about doing that.
Now, when you left, what did you do then?
I went and got a bartending job or a barback job to pay the bills right out of the Marine Corps, and just started painting. Got a garage somewhere, like an apartment in Newport Beach, California, with a garage kind of in the back in an alley type area. In Newport Beach, everybody's garages are like all in the same alleyway. So I turned that garage into just a little studio, like it was a 1-car garage. So it's like one of my first, real working studios, and it was amazing.
And where'd you go from there? Because I know there's another quit coming because you didn't end up staying as an artist / barback, correct?
Exactly, yeah. Well, I eventually did become a bartender, which was good. But but beyond that, when I left California, eventually I left California about 5 years after I got out of the Marine Corps, and I came back to New York to study art full time because I knew that I didn't really know how to draw the human figure well, and I needed to really get that understanding under my belt. And if I was going to have a sustainable career as an artist, like the way I had envisioned it when I was a child. And when I got back to New York, I tried a bunch of different, odds and end jobs just to kind of make money. And one of the jobs that I landed, which seemed to be a very promising opportunity to make good money, was a high-powered sales job. We were actually selling. It was like leads to mortgage brokers and insurance brokers, and they had a whole system. And it was a very kind of like boiler room type sales position where everybody there was making minimum $100,000 a year. My friend and the two top guys, when one of them was my friend, were making about 350K, and the other guy was making $500,000.
Wow.
So the opportunity to make money at this place was there. Everybody was making money. And if you actually got, accepted to be on the sales floor, because you had to go through about like a month and a half training or something like that in order to actually get on the sales floor, you were guaranteed that you would make $100,000 the first year. So I found that job, which I thought would be a good thing for me. But again, it didn't really turn out to be, I guess it went against what my soul's desire was. Not that my soul didn't want to make money, but it just,
Right.
so I eventually did get out onto the sales floor, and I made it through the training. They were, fairly impressed with my Marine Corps dedication and organization and all that good stuff. So those skills did serve me well coming out of the Marines. Yeah, so I did finally get through the training, and I made it onto the sales floor, and I was actually doing pretty well. My friend who was my kind of training me, I was sitting right next to him. He was telling me what to do, and just getting me along, making sure my sales calls went well. And I was basically just kind of cold calling people and getting them interested, and then I was handing them off to, say, my friend who was the closer. And I was doing well. We were closing deals, and I was making good money, and I was definitely well on my way to make $100,000 that year for sure. And I think I was only there about maybe 6 months, maybe less than 6 months. And every morning, the boss would come in and he would do a boiler room type speech, like a real motivational speech of, to get people excited to sell for the day type of thing. And he said to us, if you want money, you're in the right place. He said, if you need money, you're in the wrong place, because you have to be here. If you have to want to have money to be here. And right around lunchtime, everybody was going out to sushi or whatever everybody did for lunch. They pretty much always went out together. I stayed behind. I was thinking about what he said all day. And I was thinking, so like, that's what he said. He said, if you need money, you're in the wrong place. So I said, I was thinking to myself, I need money. I'm not here because I want money. I'm here because I need money. I need money to pursue my career as an artist. So his office, his name is Jordan. His office wasn't really like a place where anybody was able to go into, but I walked over to his office, and the guy who trained us was in there in the office as well. And I said, can I speak to you for a second? And he said, sure. What's going on? Come on in. And I said, I need money. He's like, what do you mean you need money? I said, I need money. You said this morning that if you want money, this is the place for you to be. But if you need money, this isn't where you should be. And I said, I need money. He says, what do you need money for? I said, to be an artist. He's like, what do you want to do with your life? I said, I want to paint. He said, then go paint.
Nice. Did you walk out that day and start painting? I mean, continue painting?
That's the last thing he ever said to me. I just turned around and I walked out.
I love it. I tend to not advocate the spontaneous quit, but sometimes it's the perfect scenario and the perfect setup, and you're following your intuition and you're doing what's right. And it turns out amazing. That's great. So from there, what did you do? All of a sudden it's lunchtime on a whatever day it was.
Right.
Where did you go from that? Like, did you have any fears about your quit?
I didn't have any fears. I mean, at the time, I really didn't have that many bills, and I wasn't responsible to too many things. So, quitting that job wasn't so fearful. And in New York, there's always a way to get a job doing something. There's always somebody in some kind of trade type job that will let you come work for them. Everybody always needs help. So I had a friend that was doing installing carpets, and I went to work with him for a few months just to make sure that I was making some money. And then I was job searching from that point forward, trying to figure out something that wasn't installing carpets, because that wasn't where I wanted to be either.
No.
I just quit a very well-paying job for a non-well-paying job to pursue my art career, and I didn't want to be stuck there either. So I did find a screen printing company on Long Island that was well, actually, they weren't hiring. I just walked in there and said, "Hey, I'm an artist. Do you guys need some help? I can design T-shirts," because that was what I was doing in the Marines. I was designing T-shirts for people, airbrushing them. So they looked at the art that I did, and I guess they liked it, and just so happened to be that the person that they were using, they really didn't want to use anymore because there was some problems, and they brought me on to learn their software that they designed T-shirts in, which was Adobe Illustrator at the time. I didn't know how to use Adobe Illustrator. Saying they actually let me, for the first 2 weeks of the job, I let me sit there with a Adobe Classroom and a book CD, and teach myself how to use Adobe Illustrator. And I was with them for a couple of years, learning, designing T-shirts and doing branding, logos, and things like that for them. So it was pretty cool. At least I had my first job actually making art in some sort of way.
Yeah. And do you think that having quit the sales job was essentially the opportunity for you to get that first design job, that first job that was actually going to pay you as an artist?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, when I was at the sales job, if I was making $100,000 a year, what motivation would I have had to go take a job making $20,000?
Right.
as designing T-shirts at some random place on Long Island. Like there would just be no motivation to do that. So yeah, I mean, I just had to get down to brass tacks and find something that worked, and that was the basis of me building myself up. And a lot of my experience, a lot of my the things that I learned with Illustrator, I still make a living using Illustrator, designing things for people. So it was an important step in the progress of where I am today.
So looking back on your journey, just a few areas where when you made the quit, I'd like to ask about mindset. Back when you quit air traffic controlling, when you said, okay, I'm not going to go and work with the FAA,
Mm-hmm.
what was it like to see your friends who you graduated with go take those jobs and you knew they were going to have the secure careers?
Well, initially I was just very happy for them because a lot of them weren't sure what they would do with their lives. And that job was just an incredible job. It was such a secure job. It was a fun job. We loved the job, and it paid incredibly well. So I was just extremely happy that they were, that they had jobs like that. Initially, because I was just naive and just headstrong on what I wanted to do, I didn't really think much of it. But as time's gone by, and I've watched my friends, and this is for me is over a 20-year period of time learning how to become an artist and develop my skills and all that stuff. I've haven't been making a lot of money all those years, and my friends that all took air traffic control jobs, some of my friends are retired from the Marine Corps already. Some of my friends are getting close to retiring from that job. They're all set with their finances for the rest of their lives. They live in beautiful houses with incredible cars and beautiful families and all that good stuff. And as time's gone by, it's been a little bit of a challenge mentally to put that together and to understand that I gave up that security. I gave up that financial success in order to pursue what my soul told me that I would do with my life.
And how have you dealt with that frustration?
How have I dealt with it? I can tell you that the entrepreneurial path has been very challenging in general, as you probably know, and it will definitely bring out any weaknesses you have in your mental strength, and that has been a factor. I've gone through some pretty dark times through my entrepreneurial journey and my artistic journey to make sense of why I chose to do that, to struggle for all these years and not have that financial stability. But I think all that has done for me is to allow me to move past my own personal self-imposed limitations and to become a stronger person. And because of that, I'm just better for it.
I love that. That's great. I figured you'd done plenty of introspection because a lot of people ask me about regret. How do you deal with regret if you made a certain decision and it doesn't work out? Well, there's plenty of mindset changes that just need to happen for you to see it less as a failure or as something regrettable. So I appreciate you sharing that. Two last questions. Essentially, you quit air traffic controlling before you even started with the FAA, but you quit that as a career. And that was to become an artist. But at some point, like you said, you went and did the sales job, which to the outside might seem like an unquit. You're like, oh, I was dedicating myself completely to art, but now I'm going to go back to sales or go into more of a kind of traditional 9-to-5 thing.
Right.
What was the thought process there?
Well, the thing about being an artist that most artists don't understand when they first start being an artist is that you have to be a business person as well. You have to be a salesperson. You have to be a marketing person. You have to be an organizer. You have to do all these things by yourself. It's not just about making art. There's a whole business aspect to creating a career for yourself as an artist or an entrepreneur. And you have to learn all those things. And I thought, and rightfully so, that learning how to sell would be a benefit to me in the future. And 100% that's true. It's never a bad thing to learn sales. That's going to be in the benefit of anybody. So that was the thinking at that point in time. It was like, well, this is something, it's not a bad thing. Plus, I think the money was more of a draw, and I think that's why it kind of crashed regardless.
I understand, but I love that because you see the good in it. You see why it wasn't a waste. That it was a strategic choice.
Absolutely.
You didn't just take any job that was going to make you good money. You took one that had the benefit of learning a skill that was going to help you as an artist function as a working artist that can survive from the art.
Right.
That's great. And then the last question I'd like to ask is, when you were in that sales job, was there any thought, because you've built a life following your intuition. Your intuition said you're an artist. Your intuition said go into the Marines. Was your intuition talking to you at all prior to that final conversation with your boss where you ended up walking out? Did you have any signs that this wasn't the place you should be?
Pretty much every day. Pretty much every day. I used to have to walk around the building multiple times to get myself convince myself that I need to go back in there and make more sales calls. For lunch, when everyone else was going buying $50 sushi lunches because they were all making incredible amounts of money, I would go into I had a van at the time. I go into my van. I would practice my guitar. It was like, this is that life, that creative life that I live as a musician and as an artist was constantly calling me, saying, this is who you are. That's not who you are. I never really fit in with them, honestly. Well,
as it turns out, now you are currently a working artist, correct?
That's correct.
I love it. And you have a book out or a book that will come out at some point in time. But if people would like to see your art, learn more about you, and when the book comes out, have a place to check it out, where can they find you?
They can visit my website, which has all the information and a bunch of stuff to delve into. And the website is www.bragino.com. That's spelled B as in boy, RAGINO.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us, Peter.
Oh, thank you, Lynn. It's been a pleasure.
I look forward to reading your book when it comes out. And for everybody else out there, until next time, happy quitting.